Okay, top line on page Tezai. So we are discussing the principle of Ilo v'Olu, and all in line to understand the difference between the hashpah that comes from a higher madrega, like Atzilus, into a lower madrega, in comparison to the hashpah that comes from Atzmus, of Ein Sof, into world in general. Where there is an absolute gap. There is no similarity whatsoever, no proximity. The whole concept of world does not exist in Ein Sof. Whereas when we go from a higher world into a lower world, although it's a much lower world, but the principle of world exists. So therefore, when it goes to a lower world, it is simply defining certain the world aspects as they exist on a higher level, on a lower level. And this is generally in gave him a Mesholim Gashmim, and then this is generally called Ilo v'Olu. Ilo v'Olu, again in translation, means cause and effect. The effect is not an unrecognizable element from the Ilo perspective. Except it is on a totally different level. But nonetheless, its essence and the highest that exists in the effect, in the Olu, actually is rooted in the Ilo. So as I said, we start from the top line on page Tezayin, in the middle of the line, Madrega Tachtena Shebe'ilo, the lower Madrega of within the Ilo, Mislabeshes Beha'olu, imbues itself, literally, what is the principle of Mislabeshes? The effect, the Olu, does not come inadvertently from the Ilo.
Connected to mobile device.
See, I'm dialing it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Welcome to IDT. Welcome. At the tone, please record your name followed by the pound key.
Paltiel.
Thank you. You are participant number 2.
Okay, my apologies. Mislabeshes beha'olu means that it actually relates to the Olo. The Olo does not come inadvertently. There is a force identifiable within the Elo that ultimately translates as the old. So this is a broad subject, and really it behooves us eventually to really get into the guts of it, understand the principle. But we'll get to there slowly. As in the structure of seichel and midas or machshava dibur u'maisa. These are distinct three madrigas. Seichel, midas, and machshava dibur u'maisa. Just briefly, because this is something which is a recurring subject. We are very clearly aware of machshava dibur u'maisa. These are very clearly identifiable elements. And they're so clearly identifiable elements that it is possible to lose sight as to what really enlivens it, what motivates it. So let's start bottom up. Let's say a person is walking. This means, a person is walking. He started off going into a certain destination, and he is now in the middle of that process. As he continues to walk, if he loses sight as to what the goal of this process, this walking is, he will eventually lose spirit in the whole process. Even though walking is a very simple operation. Throughout the entire journey, even though he gets involved in all kinds of different detours and so forth, the initial motivation for this activity follows him throughout, and every step is dependent on it. There is not the element that once he's walking, the walking is automatic. There is not an automatic step action at all throughout the entire process. So machshava dibur u'maisa, the action of the walk, has the chayas of the midah that initiated. This is what enables this activity. Similarly, the midah, I must get there, and I must accomplish this union. I have to have this. Has a much higher source of inspiration, of force, of chayas, that makes it imperative and that is the seichel. There's an element of the seichel in the midah, and there is a further down an element of the midah in the action. And thus, through the midah, there is an element of the seichel in the action. We discussed yesterday using the Avidas Perach in Mitzrayim as an illustration of this thing. And I'm not going to repeat this, but we all know what this is about. We also mentioned over the years, or the months, the principle of the assembly line. Assembly line means that to put together an entity, a car, it requires to put together thousands of little pieces. And to make it efficient, since these pieces have to be put onto the major transport in certain sequences, in a certain time, therefore it became a line. There's a starting line, and then there's a second station, and the third station. So each station clearly knows where it comes in and what it has to add to the general process or progress. So the human being who stands on the assembly line, and he stands someplace in the middle, and his job is to put in a certain screw. Eventually, if he should lose sight what he is accomplishing by putting in this screw, he has to do it because he won't even put it in, he won't get paid. And his watch and so forth. But eventually he'll be lax in it. Everybody heard of a lemon car? A lemon car. What's a lemon car? A lemon car has every screw in it, just like a perfect car, except one screw is put in straight, one screw is screwed in all the way down, one screw is not, and eventually this lemon car creates all kinds of problems. Because this person who was doing it was putting in a screw, he was not building a car. So he did not have, he had the machshava dibur u'maisa element. This is what I have to do, but he didn't have the midah element. Certainly he didn't have the seichel element as to what this is about. And thus, there was no chayes. You would think that to lift a hand and put in the screw and then is totally has nothing to do. This is a decision. I made a decision to do it. It'll happen automatically. No such thing. That action has to be connected to the very top of the human being. Of the seichel itself. This is called ilavo. To repeat and put it in a slightly different word, it means that the force and the chayus of the olul, of the resultant action, the koyach to do that, is contained in the highest in the highest source, in the seichel itself. I'd like to examine this a little bit You with me? A little bit more deeply. Like we said the other day, clapping to music, the clapping itself is so insignificant, has no musical element in it at all. But because there is the sense of the song, the sense of the chayes of the song, on a higher level, it reveals itself in the clapping. That's the gilui of the chayes. All right, maybe we'll skip that. We'll go further for time being. Once you start, you don't know how to limit it. So, the very last action of on level of Machshava Dibur U'Maaseh is initially contained in the Seichel. This is a phenomenal inyan. I mean, it's obvious that the Seichel brings it to do this, but it's a phenomenal inyan of a different depth. In Seichel, perhaps you could say, that in the Seichel you do not have the concept of screwing in the screw. In Seichel you have the concept that the screw should be screwed in, the final product. Or better still, that the car should be a reliable unit. But the action of putting the screw in and screwing together is not existent in the Seichel. And what we are saying now is not true. It's not true. In the Seichel there is the element of the Machshava Dibur U'Maaseh. What does that mean? Yes, indeed. Initially there is a concept of having a car. The concept of having a car is Bemerson, in truth, above Seichel. This is in Rotzen L'Noine kind of order. But that will of having a car is not a world level concept. He doesn't have a concept, I have to go from place, I have to be able to be where I want to be without effort. That is the way it is in the Nefesh order, in the higher level. When it comes into Seichel, this is where it begins to come into a world dimension. And in a world dimension, everything has to be accomplished. Nothing happens automatically. Like we discussed many times, distance is a world concept. On a higher level than that, there is no such thing. This is where the whole concept of a car is rooted. That I should disregard distance, and I should overcome the obstacle of distance. But I mean to say to overcome the obstacle of distance, not to rise above it. There is no distance. It has to be in world. Once it's in world, this is in seichel at the highest level. Over there, even though it's a seichel, a higher level, nonetheless, every aspect that is required to cover the distance is already contained in that concept.
Again, every element of the means of covering the distance is already contained there?
Yes.
So
in other words, the seichel does not want to eliminate distance. It wants to overcome the obstacle of distance, illuminate it.
Okay. So that would seem like so it would conceive of a bicycle or a car, but then why would it get involved with the screws and the nuts and bolts?
Because it wants the bicycle and the car to be in the arena of where the space is.
Oh, and to properly accomplish that, it has to get into these details.
It wants to eliminate the obstacle of space, of distance. Where does it have to be? In the place where the distance is, where the obstacle is.
Oh, so it has the idea and the implementation.
That's right. It's already contained in the seichel. This is what enables you to get in there and put in the screw.
That's still called seichel? How to get this done?
Yes. It's called a seichel.
Mm-hmm.
Seichel is what motivates, what says I have to overcome, I have to illuminate this obstacle.
Right, that part I get, where seichel is the one that motivates, but the getting it done, how to attach these two pieces together,
Excuse me.
Less
The
than.
getting it done means what? Getting it done at what level? On the seichel level or at the foot level?
Okay. I don't get getting it
The
done means it has to
implication is-
work in the world.
That's right. What allows the seichel to go into and relate to the foot level,
Original vision.
the original vision? Where does that come from?
That's it.
What's the original vision about?
It's in the Shama thing, we said.
But the Neshama is above world.
Yeah.
So how does it come to the world?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm
The answer is that in that level of seichel, you recognize that there's a tremendous, that the truth is when it's accomplished inward. Not when it is above world. This is where it really is accomplished. And the seichel has that perception. This is what Ilah ve'olum. The olul is contained in the Ilah. What's contained in the Ilah? That in world there has to be such a thing. But the Ilah sees it from a much higher level.
Sees it from a higher level, yet it deals with all the constraints.
That's right.
Of,
It has to be in world.
okay.
To have it in concept is not significant. We're not even in the conceptual level. So that's what the Ilah ve'olum. So then, if it does not come to be, that reality still remains. on a conceptual level. And if I failed once, failed twice, failed 3 times, failed 10 times, I'll make it sometimes, because that is a reality. Okay.
Well, on this last point, why should there be why should there be failure? Why should there even be the chance of failure? Meaning,
Because into the world is full of obstacles.
Yeah. We just said that those are all, let's say, conceived of from the original seichel. So it
That's
would
right.
seem like it's a
That's right.
straight-
That's what we always said. If this object were to have been created by the thought of how this object is supposed to be, it would be perfect.
Right, but okay.
But that's not how it happens. It does not translate directly from the thought into the action.
Oh, the same.
And in the action, there are all kinds of different ways. The screw can be screwed in, but it's a little bit crooked. It's no longer the same object.
Saying that the failure is not on the level of the seichel, but on the level of the implementation.
Yes. But the level of implementation is extremely important to the seichel. This is why he continues on tracking and forcing, go do it again, do it again, do it again.
So seichel sees how real this world is and how significant it is to accomplish in the
The
world.
seichel, true, but actually, I just want to correct that. It's true, but not because he sees how real the world is. But the seichel has its impetus from something higher than seichel. What is the ultimate goal of the whole thing?
Transform the world to
I say it all the time. You know, we have this gravity. Everything falls down. Gravity. All of a sudden, the earth has such a pull. And what? Why? You think about it. You think into it from a real perspective. The whole thing of gravity is because this is what the creation is all about. Where do you find the godly truth? In Tachtoinim. That's why everything goes down there.
Ratzon Adam doesn't relate to that? Can't relate to that?
Yes, it does. That's why that's why the seichel comes out in that way.
Huh.
don't ascribe it to the world itself.
I'm sorry?
I said
That's right. This is what happens in the world. It's all contained in the world, but there is a reality to it. There's a reality to it on the midas level, on the seichel level, and a higher than seichel level.
Uh-huh. So, and now the gravity and the friction are not really obstacles, they're just the environment, they're just the workforce.
Well, yeah, but they have to deal with it to deal with it in the proper way.
Uh-huh.
When you travel, when you build a car, the car is going to move at very high speeds. And you want to move it at high speed, but you have to take into account the drag, the air mass that you're pushing. You have to build it in a way that it will not be confronted face on. The same way, you have a child, you want to teach a child. You can't teach a child by forcing it, force feeding him. You have to get him to eat on his own, or to learn on his own. All right. There's a short parenthesis over here. Aynu koyach hamachshava v'dibur. Koyach hamachshava v'dibur. It's very hard to get into this at this point. I'd like to, if I can just go through it in a quick. But the Rebbe is saying that the ila v'olu of seichel or midas machshava dibur ma'aser is not the machshava dibur ma'aser of the seichel or midas. Machshava dibur ma'aser means machshava dibur ma'aser itself. Like we say, take the screw and put it in. This is not the machshava dibur ma'aser of the seichel. This is the machshava dibur ma'aser of the action that results from the seichel. For this you need a separate koyach. You can think of putting in the screw. That's the thought of the midah. But that is not what we're talking about. I'm talking about the actual action of putting it in. Okay. Shehein. I think we're finished, right? Yeah, okay. All right, this is it for this morning.